Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving deep into the massive collision between the hype of longevity biohacking and the incredibly sobering reality of human clinical trials right now in 2026. If you're following the longevity space, you know it's absolutely packed with big promises. But the science is finally hitting the clinic, and the results? They're eye-opening. Let's get right into it. So let's kick things off with a pretty provocative thought, one that kind of turns the whole current longevity narrative on its head. We all want that magic pill to slow down aging, right? But human biology is just wildly complex. What if the very interventions we think are extending our lives are actually working against our most fundamental healthy habits, like exercise? Because here's the thing. The era of relying purely on miraculous mouse data, it's over. For years, we've watched lab mice live 25% longer and magically cure all sorts of diseases. But now, in 2026, we're finally seeing how these anti-aging interventions perform in actual human beings. The translation from bench to bedside is officially happening, and man, it is a wild ride. Part 1. Decoding the aging process and moving beyond the old wear and tear model. To really grasp how we might slow aging down, we first have to completely redefine it. It's not just a passive decay, like a rusting car. It's actively driven by these 12 interconnected biological hallmarks that dictate our cellular decline. You're probably familiar with the classics, but recently, scientists really expanded this framework. They're placing a massive new emphasis on things like disabled macroautophagy, which is basically when your cells stop clearing out their own garbage, and chronic inflammation, or inflammaging. These pathways are so deeply interdependent. You pull on one string and the whole web shifts. Next up, Section 2. Rewinding the cellular clock and the massive promise of cellular reprogramming. Let's look at the absolute most sci-fi element of modern geroscience, actually trying to turn the clock backward inside our cells. Discovered back in 2006 by Shinya Yamanaka, these 4 transcription factors act like a literal software reboot for the epigenome. They can take an old, mature cell and revert it back to a youthful, stem cell-like state. But, and this is a huge catch, fully reprogramming a cell completely strips it of its identity. If an eye cell suddenly forgets it's an eye cell, that comes with a massive, massive risk of tumor formation, specifically teratomas. Not exactly what we're going for. So, the golden question. How do we get the youth without the tumors? Well, to avoid those severe risks, companies like Life Biosciences are using what's called partial reprogramming in their 2026 human trials. In their ER100 trial, they actually removed the CMOC oncogene entirely from the cocktail. Then, they target a specific, contained area, in this case the eye, using a localized injection to cure age-related blindness. After that, they use an oral antibiotic called doxycycline as a clever little chemical switch, just to temporarily turn on the youth factors. It's incredibly precise. Now, while gene therapies like that are in early trials, millions of people are looking at pills they can take today. And that brings us to the exact question every biohacker is asking about the most famous longevity drugs currently on the market. If they work so brilliantly in mice, shouldn't we all just be taking rapamycin and metformin right now? Well, this contrast brilliantly illustrates our core theme. In mouse models, the evidence is stunning. Lifespan extensions up to 25%. But in human reality, we're seeing blunted exercise adaptation and literally no significant change in visceral fat for healthy older adults. It turns out creating a super mouse simply doesn't guarantee a superhuman. Which brings us to Section 3, the human therapeutic paradox, or what happens when mouse data hits the human wall. This is the ultimate plot twist of our explainer. Why do these incredible cellular mechanisms fail to translate perfectly into complex human physiology? To get it, we have to look at the biological target itself, mTOR. It's the central nutrient and growth sensor in your cells. When nutrients are high, mTOR drives protein synthesis and muscle growth. When we inhibit it, which is exactly what rapamycin does, the cell goes into repair and recycling mode. As the medical team at Progevita noted in 2026, we're in this very strange purgatory with rapamycin right now. It's just far too unproven to treat as a routine anti-aging pill. The drug is fascinating, absolutely, and it's biologically vital. But let's not forget, it is fundamentally an immunosuppressant used for organ transplants. And here's where the data gets really sobering. Look at the 2016 RAPA-EXA-1 trial. Researchers took sedentary older adults, put them on a resistance training program, and gave half of them weekly rapamycin. The hypothesis was totally logical. It would enhance their adaptations. But instead, the group taking the longevity drug actually performed 2.13 fewer chair stand repetitions compared to the placebo group. The drug literally attenuated their functional strength gains. Incredible, right? And hey, it isn't just rapamycin either. Metformin, the famous diabetes drug repurposed for aging, shows the exact same paradox. Just like rapamycin, major trials like MASTERS and the 2025 MetPrevent study showed that metformin actually blunts muscle hypertrophy, meaning it limits your muscle growth, and it completely failed to improve walking speed in healthy, active adults. So it's actively interfering with the vital adaptations your body makes when you hit the gym. Let's move on to section 4, clearing out senescent cells, essentially taking out the cellular trash. So let's pivot to another massive area of research making its way into human trials, senolytics. As our cells age and take damage, some of them just refuse to die. They become senescent, often called zombie cells. And worse, they start secreting this toxic inflammatory cocktail called SASP that pollutes the healthy tissue all around them. Senolytics are drugs specifically designed to hunt down those zombie cells and force them into programmed cell death. And the tech here is evolving so fast. The first-generation senolytics were broad, systemic oral cocktails, think dasatinib and quercetin, taken in quick hit-and-run doses. But the second-generation drugs, like UBX 1325, are highly localized precision injections straight into the eye. They aim at a very specific survival pathway, BCL-XL, to clear out these cells with real surgical accuracy. Now, they've had some mixed results in trials, missing a strict primary endpoint, but they still showed some very promising sustained vision gains. So the potential is definitely there. All right, wrapping things up with section 5, measuring before you biohack, and the final clinical verdict. So with all of this incredibly promising but highly mixed human data, how should we actually approach our own health and longevity today? We really have to look at the scoreboard. Right now, the human evidence for these miracle pills simply does not outweigh the risks for healthy, active people. Rapamycin, zero proof of extending human lifespan, but it definitely brings risks to your immunity and blunts your exercise. Metformin, also no anti-aging proof in healthy humans, and it actively blunts the muscle gains that are absolutely critical to surviving old age. This brings us to the most crucial takeaway of this whole explainer. A biological mechanism is not a medical indication. Just because we know exactly how an aging pathway works in a mouse or in a petri dish does not mean it's safe or effective to blindly suppress it with prescription drugs in your own body. Instead of guessing with off-label immunosuppressants, the smartest doctors in 2026 are telling us to focus on the basics. You need to optimize these proven, measurable clinical biomarkers first. Fix your ApoB and cholesterol. Build your VO2 max and aerobic capacity. Increase that lean muscle mass and grip strength. Drive down your visceral fat and inflammation. These are the things you can measure and actually improve today through targeted lifestyle changes and established therapies. So, as we watch this incredible translational science unfold over the next decade, I want to leave you with this one question. Are you building the true, measurable foundation of your health first? Or are you just looking for a pharmacological shortcut? It's an insanely exciting time for geroscience, no doubt, but your best longevity drug right now is probably found in your daily habits, not a magic pill. Thanks for exploring this fascinating data with me.